Okay, so what if I told you that one of the sharpest experts on youth employment wasn't some big shot CEO or a fancy recruiter, but a 50-year-old barber? Sounds kind of crazy, right? Well, we're going to dive into his incredible story, a story about decades of observation, a personal crisis, and a totally new way of thinking about work.
And here he is. For over 30 years, he's had this unique front row seat to the hopes, the fears, and the job hunting journeys of literally thousands of young people. Think about it. He wasn't just cutting hair. He was collecting data, one conversation at a time. And he started to notice something really important.
So that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? How does a guy who's had exactly one job interview his entire life figure out the secret for a generation facing a completely different world? Well, the answer, it turns out, is all about what he saw from behind that barber's chair.
All right, let's get into the heart of what our barber figured out. We're going to break down the pattern he spotted, which, as you'll see, is backed up by some pretty serious numbers.
First, a little reality check. Right now in the UK, the youth unemployment rate is sitting around 14.2%. And get this, 62% of young people say that finding a job is harder than it's ever been. So this isn't just a feeling people have, it's a real systemic problem that schools and the usual career advice just aren't solving.
So this is what our barber saw, day in and day out. He saw two completely different types of job seekers. On one side, you had the confident ones. They'd come in all the time for interview haircuts. They'd talk about sending out tons of applications, getting rejected, sure, but they just kept going. For them, it was a numbers game. But then, you had the other group, the anxious ones. They might get lucky, land one job, and then cling to it for years. And if they ever had to look for work again, they were terrified. They had zero practice, no resilience at all.
And this is where it all hit home for him. He looked at his own 17-year-old son and just had this moment of pure panic. I mean, with no corporate background himself, he realized he had no idea how to teach his own kid how to be one of those confident, resilient types. He understood the problem, but he didn't have a practical way to fix it.
So that personal crisis, combined with 34 years of listening to people in his chair, it sparked an idea. It led him to create this really powerful philosophy for turning all that anxiety into actual, real-world confidence.
He called it the Volume Experience Method, or VEM for short. And the idea is actually pretty simple, but so powerful. Confidence isn't something you're just born with. It's a skill. It's something you build through practice. The whole point is to change the job search from this scary all-or-nothing event into more of a low-stakes training exercise.
At its core, VM is basically a self-powering cycle. It works like this. You send out a ton of applications, which leads to more interviews. More interviews, even the ones that don't work out, give you practice. That practice builds real confidence. And that confidence, it leads to better performance and, yep, better jobs. It just keeps feeding itself. I love this. This is the big mental switch at the center of the whole thing. A rejection is no longer a failure, it's just feedback. It's like a rep at the gym. Every single no you get is just a practice run that makes you stronger and more prepared for the moment that yes finally comes along. You're literally building a rejection muscle. Now, here's where it gets really fascinating. This wisdom from a barber shop, it's not just a nice idea. It turns out it's actually backed by decades of real psychological research.
So, there's this famous psychologist, Albert Bandura, and he came up with a concept called self-efficacy. It's a fancy term, but it just means your belief in your own ability to succeed at something. And Bandura proved that this belief isn't just wishful thinking. It's one of the biggest drivers of whether you actually succeed or not. And how do you build it? You guessed it, through practice. And check out how perfectly these two things line up. Bandura said the best way to build self-efficacy is through what he called mastery experiences, basically succeeding by trying over and over. Well, that's exactly what VEM's high-volume applications are. Bandura talked about learning by watching others. VEM uses mock interviews. He mentioned social persuasion. VEM uses AI coaching. The wildest part, the barber had never read the research, but he'd figured out the exact same principles just by watching people in the real world. So this is all great in theory, but how do you turn this philosophy into a real tool that, a 17-year-old can actually use? Well, that's where technology comes in to bring this whole volume experience method to life. The solution is a platform called Jumpstart-Careers, and it's built on these 5 key pillars. It's basically a complete toolkit designed to walk a young person through every single step of the job hunt, all while reinforcing that core idea of practice and repetition.
And honestly, one of its coolest features tackles this huge problem, blank box anxiety. You know that feeling, right? Staring at an application form that just asks, "So, why do you want this job?"
Instead of that terrifying empty box, the AI breaks it down into small, friendly questions, helping you build a killer answer one piece at a time. It completely takes the fear out of it.
But really, this whole approach is about so much more than just finding your first job. It's about building a fundamental life skill, one that our school system often just, well, misses. And here's what people actually walk away with. This isn't about vague promises. Young people leave with real, tangible assets they need: a professional CV, actual experience filling out applications, and that muscle memory from practicing interviews. They are truly equipped for what's next.
And this really gets to the heart of the mission. Our education system is incredible at making students exam ready, but the world demands that they're also life ready. Ready for the forms, the interviews, and all the inevitable rejections that come with chasing any big goal. This whole thing is about bridging that gap.
So, we'll leave you with this one thought to chew on. So much of our society teaches us to be terrified of failure, to aim for perfection on the very first try. But what if the barber was right all along? What if the real secret to building that deep, unshakable confidence is to stop seeing failure as the end and start seeing it as the training ground for your success?